Not surprisingly, the Queen much dislikes talking in public about family troubles. But when there are public troubles, she's quick to speak out. She's no great orator, but sometimes the blandness actually helps. Last July, London's tubes and buses were hit by terrorist bombs.
I want to express my admiration for the people of our capital city who, in the aftermath of yesterday's bombings, are calmly determined to resume their normal lives. That is the answer to this outrage.
And the answer always seems to be the same from the Queen. Head down, keep going. As in private grief, routine can help get you through. This time, despite real fears of more attacks coming, nothing is cancelled. 3 days after the bombs, a full programme of events takes place to remember the war in Europe. This is curiously appropriate. 2,000 wartime veterans, the Queen's generation, men and women who often share her phlegmatic instincts, have been invited to Buckingham Palace, where they may well be meeting up for the very last time.
It's a big honour for anyone to visit the palace, but the veterans especially are very, very excited about it. Some of them have actually had 2 weeks holiday. They spent last week in Portsmouth doing all the events down there, and they spent this week up in London. So they've actually booked a full 2-week holiday, and they're living around the whole thing. So this is the final day, obviously, and it's a bit of a crescendo for them, and they're really looking forward to it.
Modern Britain is apt to elbow its veterans to the sidelines. There's no elbowing here.
We're getting awful scarce on the ground, awful scarce. And I think this is what, to me, it stands out, is the fact that we've been invited here, especially, and I hope to meet other friends who are left, like myself.
Years ago, I didn't expect to be here. I was at Dunkirk Beaches.
I'm 84. I probably haven't got a lot of life left in me yet, but on the other hand, I'll never forget today until my dying day.
I wish my wife was here to see it.
And the Queen has seen something a bit more menacing than paper flowers falling just here. In 1939, on the outbreak of the war, it was suggested that the Princesses Elizabeth and Margaret should be evacuated quickly to Canada or North America. Queen Elizabeth, her mother, said, "I should die if I had to leave. The children won't go without me. I won't leave the King, and the King will never leave."
In daylight raids, between 350 and 400 enemy aircraft were launched in 2 attacks against London and southeast England. About half of them were shot down.
Throughout World War II, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth spent their days working in London and then went to Windsor at night, from where the princesses made their very first broadcast in October 1940.
In wishing you all good evening, I feel that I am speaking to friends and companions who have shared with my sister and myself many a happy children's hour. Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister Margaret Rose and I feel so much for you, as we know from experience what it means to be away from those we love most of all.
2 years later, 16-year-old Princess Elizabeth joined the war effort as a member of the Auxiliary Territorial Service.
She then hadn't, of course, mixed with anybody at all, let alone, we were quite old compared to her. I think we were all, roughly speaking, 5 years older.
It must have been very different for her to suddenly tip up with 11 other women she'd never set eyes on. She was very natural, very nice, and obviously had a great sense of humour. Anybody made a funny remark, she was quick to have a look round to see what it was about, you know.
She did change wheels and strip down engines and do all the things that we had to do. Yes, she did. And when the King and Queen Mother came over, she was doing it to show them that she did it. She did what we were all doing. You must realise that women were really not in the forces at all in those days. No, I think joining us was quite something revolutionary, to suddenly be taken from school and to be thrown to us. And she really handled herself so well.
Buckingham Palace itself was bombed no fewer than 9 times, and the Queen remembers the damage vividly. She's got a sharp memory, as becomes clear when she's presented with a statue made from the debris of a British fighter which had crashed nearby.
This is the project to recover the remains of the Hurricane, which is just down the road, the one that famously ran the German bomber over London and down Britain in September.
It was on that same day that the damage was done to the front of the palace, which I'm sure you're very familiar
Yeah,
with.
but that was another one. That was out of the goal. The one which formed the forecourt. The quadrangle, and out here.
Yes.
It missed all bits of them.
Yes, but it was yeah.
They were here.
Very fortunate. Yes, they were here. Yes, indeed. Actually, kind of from the outside. It is. It's cleaned up in a remarkably good way, really, considering.
That ended up in the library.
Good. Come back to an appropriate host.
Thank you, Mark.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, sir.
July is one of the busiest months in the Queen's calendar. 4 days later, the lawn is transformed yet again for tea with the Queen. Again, monarchy acting as an excuse for gathering.
So you've got plates, cups, plates.
Everything just make sure there's no chips. Anything that's...
If you think the nation is a family, then these are its family summer Barbies. Though, again, calling this a family party is like calling Buckingham Palace a maisonette. In this 1 month, the Queen plays host to 48,000 garden party guests in London and Scotland. There's a solemn edge this year. The London bombings are still fresh in everyone's minds.
Garden parties probably started in the 1860s, when Queen Victoria, we know, held garden parties, and they have changed very little since then.
Over 7,000 guests assembled for the first Buckingham Palace garden party of the season. It was a glittering social occasion during which many people were presented. The Queen, who was wearing a dress of white silk shantung with a design of moss roses, later mingled with her guests, as did the other members of the royal family.
At every party, 27,000 teas are served from a buffet table as long as some suburban streets. It's a finely tuned affair taking place between 4 and 6 o'clock on the dot. But who's invited and why? It's for people who contribute to national life, charity workers, money raisers, less well-known public servants. In a way, it's the least formal part of the honours system, the Order of the British Ham Sandwich.
It's one of those opportunities. If you get, you know, an invitation to go to the Queen's garden party, you just don't say no, do you?
Well, I didn't think it would be this busy at first, or this type of atmosphere.
I think it's very lively, actually, and a lot more laid back than I expected. I was expecting it to be really posh, and I didn't know if I'd be, you know, dressed up enough for it, really.
Yeah, it's been very special for me. My mum has told everybody because back in Wales is a big thing.
The guests make the garden parties. It is they who make it special and make them different. Luckily, few incidents. We've had our streaker, but everybody has a streaker from time to time. I suppose the worst incident we had was during a thunderstorm when guests took shelter under the trees. One tree was struck by lightning, and 3 girls who were sheltering underneath it were unhurt but shocked, but their tights had melted.
This year, the last garden party of the season takes place in Edinburgh, at the Palace of Holyrood House. Scotland's one of the few places where the Queen enjoys complete privacy at Balmoral, though today at Holyrood House, duty calls. It's an investiture. John Lennon famously sent his back in protest against war. David Bowie, like many others, is rumoured to have refused his, but most say, yes please. The Queen has conferred more than 380,000 honours. Today, another 90 join the list.
Well, it's special in lots of ways. It's obviously special to be in Scotland and to receive it in Scotland amongst other Scots who've done such amazing things. Isn't it? Everyone in there has such an incredible story. And it's really special to get it from the Queen. She's a sporting enthusiast and obviously a big fan of Scotland. So it was a great day. It was really special.
That's it, perfect. Let's smile again, no, come on.
It means a great deal, you know, to be honoured, you know, in this special way. It really does mean a lot, and it's unexpected. It's not something you think about when you start your sport or you get involved in your sport. But yeah, to be recognised in this way and in this setting too, it's just fantastic.
When you get the letter, and you can't really share it with anyone. I obviously can tell my husband and my agent, but nobody else, because they say keep it a secret.
It comes from the Prime Minister's office, and it says, it's that wonderful phrase that you, well, I'm probably paraphrasing it slightly wrong, but I do remember, I have it in mind to recommend to Her Majesty the Queen that you be made a member of the most excellent order of the British Empire.
So it was just me and Shirley, my dog, in the house, so I sat and told her. And it's terrible because you're so thrilled, you're so proud, and you're bursting to tell someone, and of course you can't.
And then, of course, there's rather a prosaic part of it. You turn over the letter, there's another piece of paper, and it says tick box. Yes, I accept. No, I decline. Well, I didn't think long before I ticked the box to say yes. And then you send it off. And then, of course, your mind whirs about all this. And the words keep going through your head. I have it in mind to recommend to Her Majesty the Queen. And then you play out these scenes with the Prime Minister going down his list in front of the Queen and saying, Alan Titchmarsh. And she said, oh, I don't think so.
I mean, I was nervous. Yeah, you always are when you meet the Queen and Royal. You get the stomach turns over. And there was all these people, but they were so very nervous. And one came up and said, oh, I don't know how to curtsy. And I literally, this is no lie, I was in the ladies and a few of them followed on. I said, come on girls, anybody want lessons in curtsies?
Her Majesty said to me, she said, oh, I understand you're in a soap. And I said, yes, ma'am, EastEnders. I said, and you know, you talk absolute rubbish because you're so overcome with the moment. And I said, but I don't think you'd like it. It can be depressing. But it sells well abroad, brings in lots of revenue for the country. Oh, good, she said, I'm pleased about that.